Facebook, that book, this book. Whatever happened to the Jungle Book? www.com, rom-com, sitcom, someone drop a bomb. Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, this Rickrest, twaddle, no fucking interest. Laptop, desktop, tabletop. Jesus H. Christ, the world's lost the plot. Messenger, webcam, Skyping, texting. Whatever happened to letter writing? Google this and Google that. Open a book and read, ya twat. Yahoo, Viber, Spotify, PayPal, YouTube. Gi's a break. You're a tube. The digital age is upon us now. English language take a bow. Words replaced by abbreviation. God help the younger generation. Give me a time when the phone sat in the hall. Give me a time when you said no to take a call. This digital age is not what it's cracked up to be. This digital age, it's not for me. And tonight, we have Byddi Lee, and that wee poem is called Not For Me, and it takes us in to the wonderful author that is Byddi Lee. And once again, I forgot to say, welcome to Acoustic Haven. One of these days I'll get it right, but for now, I'm only learning. Tonight we have the wonderful writer that is Byddi Lee, and she promised me a new dress outfit, so she's looking very sharp tonight. So if you're sitting at home, I want you sort of give her a round of applause. I know you might look stupid, but it doesn't matter. So, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you, and I'm delighted to be here.
And so, the new book's coming out. I want to know about your first book, how you got into writing. I also noticed that you were into biology before that, and how that change came around. So that's a nice wee place to start.
Okay, so I studied at Queen's. I studied environmental biology back whenever nobody even cared about the environment, really. And the whole climate change was very big. There was only 3 of us in our class. And we were the first ones to get that actual label of a degree.
Well,
but so I couldn't get a job in it. And I ended up teaching biology for about 15 years. Part of that time was in Banbridge and part of that time was in Belfast.
Right.
And I have to say I really did enjoy teaching biology. I did love it. But then my husband got offered a job in California.
Okay.
And that meant that I was having to leave my school here, which was Rathmore. And so we left. I had to leave obviously to go with him. Didn't have to. I mean, I chose to as well. But out in America, I wasn't really that keen to retrain to teach the same thing that I had been teaching for 15 years. And so I thought this was a good opportunity. I'd been dabbling in writing. I had started a novel. I suppose I had another novel in the wings. I had done a bit of travelling, and I had like a travel journal from that. Okay. And that's what I suppose really started people back home that I was sending. This is before blogs even. You just sent an email to the entire email address list. But it was only maybe 20 people. Like, it's not like it is now. And one of the English teachers kept all the stories that I had sent home from my travels. And when I got back, he said, we should think about making this into a book. And if I had made it into a book, it would have been like, that Eat, Love, Pray.
Yeah.
Except mine would have been called Drink, Dive, Ski. So, but and I sent it into like one of these. It probably was a competition, we want to see your new book, and we'll do that. You pay so much money, and we'll give you like a wee write up and tell you how feedback thing, and it didn't get very good feedback. It was awful. So I think the word they used was pathos.
And was that March to November?
No.
No.
This is one that we'll never see.
Right. Okay.
So that got put in a drawer, and then I started March to November,
Okay.
Because that's what writers do. They're told their writing's really bad, and then they just start writing
Start
something
again,
else.
huh?
Yeah. So that was March to November. So March to November, I had started it before we went out to out to America, and so it was straight. It was. I'm sitting in the States. I don't know anybody. So we're living in California. I don't know anybody. My husband's at work all day, and I'm in the house alone. I was like one of those puppies that's cooped up, it's
trying to get it.
Yeah. So I was sitting at home writing about the Holy Lands in Belfast, because that's where I had just left, and so the story is about 5 people living in and around the Holy Lands. In my head, of course, it was where I had lived in Rugby Avenue, but they're living in the Holy Lands. Some of them are, some of them aren't, but the main story revolves around that area, and it's 5 people who are all interconnected.
Right,
and it's basically a relationships drama, and there's a couple making up, and there's a couple breaking up, and there's a woman on the side, and all this.
Yeah.
It's sort of like 30-something based in Belfast.
Right. Okay.
So that was March to November.
Brilliant. And then flash fiction and the plays, did they come?
So yeah, well, out in California, whenever I published when I published March to November, there was a flash fiction forum, San Jose. And it was for, they were trying to build community for the arts, because it was a great community if you were into, tech and all the digital stuff, because that was Silicon Valley, basically.
Yeah.
But there wasn't the same sort of focus on the arts, or so a lot of us felt. So a couple of local girls started up a flash fiction forum, and then when I came home, I thought it was great.
Right.
And so when I came home, we came home in 2016. Well, actually, we got as far as Paris in 2016. And we lived for a year in Paris, and then we came home in 2017. And then there was a couple of months of just getting settled in. And then in 2018, I started Flash Fiction Armagh, and we sort of saw it as the sister organisation of, although we never did see the people from San Jose because of the time difference and all. So that was how Flash Fiction.
And how did that work?
The very first night, what we did was, I put out a call for submissions.
Yeah.
And Kathy Carson was one of the people for the very first night. And I remember her story crossing, coming into my computer, and me reading her story. And she called it at the time Spectrum. It's not part of her show, it's a separate story.
Yes.
And I remember just thinking I was just blown away by it.
That's unreal.
And unreal. And my scalp was tingling reading it.
Yeah.
And I was like, we have to have this. And there was just something about it, and I thought, this is great. So there was her, there was a couple of others. There was a fellow called Jay Faulkner. He's no longer with us, but he's always in our hearts. So there was Jay. There was 10 people anyway selected for that first night.
Right.
And we went to a local restaurant in Armagh, and they at the time opened in the evenings, and they let us have their upstairs room.
Okay.
Free of charge at the time.
Yeah.
And then everybody read for free, and everybody got in for free.
Brilliant.
And it was a pure experiment to see how it would work.
Yeah.
And so the other person that was setting us up with me was a man called Raymond O'Kieran, and he was an Irish speaker. So we were welcoming, Irish language as well. So we had a couple of Irish language readers. One lady in particular, Rialton, I have her name wrong, but Rialton, she read this really great story in a mix of English and Irish, so you could follow the story, even if you didn't have a lot of Irish. It was really good. So that first night was a success.
Great.
Pure and simple, and we organised then to have another one, and then at a certain point we thought, we have to pay these writers. So the way we did it for the first round was that we said, look, we'll give you an amount of money. It was a very nominal fee, but it was tokenry. If you give us, we'll give you this money if you give us permission to publish your story in the Bramley, because Armagh's where the Bramley apples are from. Yeah. So the Bramley the Bramley Volume 1 was born through that.
Oh, right.
And we paid, I think we paid everybody, and I think there was about 35 or 38 people, all together, and we paid them £5 each for their stories, But that was great. And then the Lord Mayor had a launch for it and everything, so it was lovely, and we did that. And then we went again. The second brownie actually came out during COVID.
Yeah.
But by this stage we had started. We were charging at the door, and we were getting a wee bit of grant money as well. The museum was helping us out with that. They got funding to have us in, so we put that money from that into like a pool, and then at a certain point we were able to start paying the writers.
Yeah.
And that's what we do. And it just means that it's not a lot of money for some of them. It won't even cover their travel to Armagh, where they're coming from. But it gives them it means that they can tick a box. They can say, I'm a writer who has been paid for my work, and that's infinitely important. I think as a writer, I think you feel like you're a real writer when you can write it anyway. That you know. So that was what was.
I got that with poetry when I first got my first 20 quid for a night. I was just like, what? 20 quid?
You feel like you're Rockefeller.
It's like, I don't want this. No. But then when you go out and you turn the corner, it's
yes. Yeah.
But so
that was that.
And then Abbey Lane Theatre place.
So that was
Armagh
Theatre Group in Abbey Lane, so actually what happened was I was trying to promote flash fiction, and I knew they were running an open mic night, and I wanted to make it clear that our thing was not in competition, and that way, slightly different setup.
Yeah.
So I went down to one of their open mic nights. I'd been to play and whatnot there as well recently, to them. And I went down to their open mic night, and Malachi Kelly was running the open mic night, and I asked him would he mind, promoting flash fiction Armagh.
Yeah.
And he said, "Sure, get you up and promote it yourself, So you're standing up in front of this big crowd," and it was a very big crowd actually for my tastes, and I'm like stumbling over my words, and we're doing this thing, and I didn't even know how to explain it, And but the crowd there would often be, a lot of them will come to our shows, so there's a lot of mixing of that. So and then Malky and Tim Hanna, Malky Kelly and Tim Hanna and myself got together. So one thing always goes into the next thing, right?
Yeah.
So we happened to be on a playwriting course, and we started talking about writing about the train disaster in Armagh, and that's how we ended up.
That was going to be my next question, actually.
Yeah.
The train disaster.
So that arose from.
So
one thing kind of led to the next, and so we would meet once a week, and we would sit down around the table and try to figure out, like, how do we get into this story, and what is the story, and who are the characters, and what's it all about. And it was lots of research, but each of the three of us brought, I think, something different to the table, because the lads had much more experience in theatre than I had. I had maybe seen a few plays, been in a couple as a kid, but not really, so everybody brought something different.
Yeah.
So they had more of an idea of like stage, and one of the guys in particular, sort of was already thinking about what it was going to look like. Whereas I was coming, I think, from the idea of story structure and who's the protagonist and what's our high point and where's the conflict and all that. And one of the lads is very, very funny, and for such a tragic play, there are a couple of wee moments where the audience gets to have a wee laugh. It's a moment of relief.
Well, you need that tension to break it down, don't you? Really, you can't just have
punctuate
an hour and a half of.
That's right.
Just not misery, but grief, if you like.
That's it. Yeah. So, and it makes you. I think actually it makes your characters more human, and then your audience plugs for them.
Yeah.
So that whenever you rip away who that person is, or kill them or whatever it is, it's more devastating to the audience. And really, as writers, you're a bit sadistic. You want to be maximum devastation for your reader and your audience, So that was So that was how we got. So Impact, we timed it nicely because it was 2019,
and
it was the 130th anniversary of the train disaster.
Yeah.
So we put it on in the Armagh Abbey Lane Theatre, and it's a small theatre, very intimate, between 50 and 55 seats, and depending on how we let them out, and we sold out every show for like 3 or 4 nights.
then you've got another one coming up.
Yeah.
Is it toxic?
Toxic relationships.
Yeah.
So I ditched the lads for that one. I wrote that on myself.
All right, okay.
I'm the Todd, but no, that came about again, sort of way through doing research for this book.
Right.
I kind of fell into the Writing the Earth project at the Irish Writers Centre.
Yeah.
Thinking that it would help me for the research for this, but it opened up a whole new rabbit hole that I just dived down.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Well, so why don't you read us a wee bit from your book?
From Barren. Okay.
And then we'll talk about rejuvenation and Barren and your tour dates that are coming up after. How does that sound?
Absolutely. That's great. So, what I'm going to read is a little bit. It's not at the beginning, but it's not going to give too much away. I think we all know that there's a devastating climatic event happens. And when I first thought about this part of the book, I always wondered that if we think that this event is very possibly it could have happened, and I just tried to imagine what it would look like. How did it play out to the people on the ground in 2354 BC? We know the date to the year.
Yeah.
3 rings. So a piercing fizzle like wood sap burning makes me look at the fire. I see no leaping flames, nor sparks, nor even smoke. A roar overhead draws my eyes up. Nearest looks up too, so I know it's not my ears. God preserve us, he hisses. The hags attacking the sun. High above us, a fireball travels through the air. It splits the sky in two, leaving a trail of billowing white smoke. But the sun's over there, I point, flinching as the sky rumbles and cracks with brittle pops and high-pitched sizzling. Fear skitters through my chest, making me short of breath. Stunned hands shading our brows, we track the fireball's trail until it disappears over the sunless horizon, leaving a smoky rip along the sky. Has the hag torn the world open? Will the sky fall in? Is it a falling star? What was that? Before Nearest can answer me, a boom thunders through the air. The din hits me in the chest, passing through my flesh and bones like it could separate me from my skin. Staggering back, I grasp my husband. We collapse to our knees, cowering and clutching each other as a grey cloud swells on the horizon where the fireball disappeared. The cloud grows and spreads. Hues of mauve edged the bulging bloom. Lower, towards the horizon, orange and purple churn and blend as the cloud chugs upward. Inside my head, the pop, pop, pop begins, paced and certain. There are no rain clouds, but there is that monster cloud on the horizon. Rain will fill this river and make it flood. We need to go higher, I say, standing up and dragging Nearest to his feet. What? Why? The look on his face irritates me, but I force myself to be kind. He's as scared as I am. It's going to rain. Nearest nods, mute, and turns back to kick dirt over the fire. It's safe, I say. Leave it. I grab my axe and go up the hill. Nearest soon overtakes me. The gradient is gentle, and I'm able to trot to keep up with Nearest. The giant cloud hangs in the sky. It looks as far away as the sun. As I stare, the swirling edges tug and blend across the blue sky, and the blaze of the sun dims. I think the cloud is closer than the sun. Like any other cloud, yet there is something different about this one. It billows like smoke from a fire, but on a scale I cannot fathom. Eventually the gradient tips, and my breath shortens as we gain height. On a ridge directly above us, I spot a cluster of huts. Should we try to divert around this settlement? Surely they are used to this river in full spate, so we'll be safe enough if we get to that height. I turn my head to the right to look at the cloud and don't see Nearest stop. I slam into his back and we both stumble. What are you doing? I snap. He points downriver, his mouth open. Look. In the distance, a wall of black liquid charges upriver. At the bottom of the valley, the wave is higher than 5 mature oak trees end to end. Along its edges, treetops poke out of the water, Bushes, trees, rocks, and to my horror, huts and livestock tumble and roll in the wall of river crashing upstream. Run! I scream, and we do. But as the dark spread of water sweeps along the hillside towards us, I realise we are still on fairly low ground. The valley was wider than it looked. Above us I see oak trees growing on flatter land above the settlement before the hill curves steeply upwards. Gasping, we reach the village. 2 women are outside a hut working at their fire. One looks up, runs into her hut and reappears with a stick. Go higher, I call to the villagers, but they stare blankly at me in the door of their hut, terrified and perhaps unable to understand my words, my accent. I point at the advancing water, then point up the hill. We keep running. No one follows. We are almost at the oaks when I glance downriver, where the wave is charging through the forest. The trees further from the river are holding, their roots keeping them in place, the strength of the water peaking along the riverbed. We reach the dark understory of the oak forest, and a blast of air topples us. I fall back and wriggle onto all fours. Nearest is on his knees beside me. The wind is strong and tears at our clothes, rips our hair, flings it in our faces, gouges tears from our eyes. We can't stand, so we crawl. We have to climb a tree. I grab nearest and point to the nearest oak. The trunk is wide, strong, and straight. I stagger to my feet, charge at it, and jump to the lowest branches. But I'm not tall enough. Nearest makes it on first try, hauls himself up and reaches down for me, but I miss his hands. The wave is almost upon us. The wind sucks the breath from my body. My heart pounds. I pull the axe off my belt and rip it from the sheath. I whack the oak tree, burying the axe head at an angle into the trunk. It sticks. I have a foothold. Nearest catches my hand as I spring up. He hauls me into the tree. Bark gouges the bare skin on my stomach where my tunic rides up. It stings. I yelp, but I'm clear of the black water swirling underneath. The tree sways as we climb higher. We wrap our limbs around branches. I wail with the wind, my heart bursting, my cries lost in the crashing water. The sun dims and dies. Darkness descends.
Brilliant. Really, really good.
Thank you.
Really, really good. So, Rejuvenation, which I have, it's a wonderful read. Absolutely brilliant. But I have to ask about the photograph. What were you smoking, Mrs.?
I know!
Because me and him want some of that. That is just...
So what happened was...
And I wouldn't have mentioned it if you hadn't put a photograph of yourself up on Facebook yesterday and said so. So I thought, right, that's going to be...
I am so glad somebody has at long last said something about that photograph because it has haunted me for years. What happened was, because this was published in the first instance by Castrum Press.
Yeah.
And the publisher had said to me, I said to him, do you need a headshot for the back of the book? And he was like, no. He says, we're not going to do that. And I was like, oh, grand, that's fine, no bothers. That suits me down to the ground. And so then he said, but can you send me a headshot for, can you send me something to send for No Alibis?
Yeah.
They were going to do the launch, but there was no launch because of COVID, right? But anyway, this was what was going to happen. So, so it was one of those it was quite a sunny day. It was about this time of year, a wee bit earlier in March actually, and or no, maybe even February. And I ran down into the garden and I was saying to my husband, "Quick, get a headshot! I need this for No Alibis." And we send it, and then maybe we'll get something a wee bit better later on, and update the whole thing because it wasn't going to be until April, you know. So so we took the picture, and it was like, yeah, okay, that'll do. And it actually wasn't as bad as it looks in the book because it had like skin tone colours, you know. But then when Castrum Press put it on the book, they blended all the colour in with the back of the book, which is like a blue. So I have this like complexion, like I've been dead for like 5 centuries, you know. And when I say it, I kind of went, oh, that's awful. And then you'll notice there's no picture on the back.
I didn't even notice, to be honest with you. I just thought, that's photograph.
I just thought, you know what? It's a dystopian book. Like, who really cares what I look like? And I just said, you know, I'm not gonna make a fuss, and I'll just let him go with it. Because I just said it was awful vain to go, you know, could you put something pretty up? Because the pretty one was probably be about 10 years old.
And Rejuvenation itself, or the trilogy, I don't want to know about this number 2 and number 3. But is that from your research? Did you use a lot of that in your book? Kind of some of the language in it. Like I thought, you've been a doctor before, or you've definitely been something before, because there's some great thinking on it.
I will never write a character who has a profession that you would need more intelligence for than I actually have. Again, do you know what I mean? So I had to be really careful, like that. Bobby sounded smart, but I did have there was a couple of doctors. There was two doctors and a couple of other medical professionals, mostly nurses, who helped me out with some of the language and how things would be said and that,
Yeah.
So there's a doctor called Orna McCusker, and she's based in San Francisco, and she actually she's related to somebody from Armagh, and I put out this call, so her doctor would talk to me for half an hour just about, these things. And she was brilliant. She, on the phone, this was in California, I was right in Smith. So on the phone chatting away, and she was so good about I was saying there's a thyroid thing, I need to talk about that. She has to go through, trying to figure out why the people are getting younger looking and what that could be. So she was really good at that. She's in the acknowledgements as well, but I thought it.
That's a really good read. I really enjoyed it. Really did enjoy it. So much so I ordered the other 2 today. And also Rejuvenation. My friend used to have a techno band in the mid-90s, and they were called Rejuvenation. And their claim to fame was signing Daft Punk to their record label, and then sold their contract on to Virgin Records.
Oh, wow.
And they've been living off that ever since, the 2 of them.
Yeah.
So that was the connection for me. And now Barren.
So Barren's a dual timeline. So you heard from the Neolithic timeline, and the modern day timeline is a character who is dealing with she's had a miscarriage, she's going through IVF, and she's living in California, and then an earthquake happens that causes that axe that Zosime had in the reading.
Yeah.
So this has found its way into the possession of the main character, kind of the main character in the modern timeline. And this axe falls off her mantle shelf and hits a geode. And a geode is like a symbol of fertility. And but anyway, it cracks open this geode during this earthquake, and at the same moment, it's as if the spirit world, there's a hole has rendered in this spirit world.
Right, okay.
And the miscarried baby spirit is able to come through into the physical world as such. And so that's Poppy. She's called Poppy. That's the Poppy's here on the book cover.
Yeah.
So Poppy is able to communicate with her mother, and Poppy narrates the modern timeline. And so the modern timeline is about Poppy's mother trying to become a mother, and she actually doesn't. She fails to become a mother, in the sense that she doesn't have a child in the physical world. Yeah. And so it's about sort of child loss, baby loss, and infertility.
Right.
And in the Neolithic time, we didn't really hear that bit about Zosime, the main character for it, but she is also trying to have a family, and she just keeps having miscarriage after miscarriage. So the fertility thing is mirrored in both timelines. And I thought that was interesting because even though in the modern timeline we have so many scientific, breakthroughs and IVF and ways for people to have children, but sometimes they still fail. Yeah. So she was no better off than her Neolithic counterpart, so to speak. And then the other parallel is the current climate crisis, and I was paralleling it with the climate crisis that was going on in the Neolithic world. And the difference there is that the Neolithic world, that climate crisis only lasted for 9 years, and it was absolutely catastrophic to the people living there.
Yeah.
And they didn't cause it, but they suffered very, very badly. The island of Ireland, when the population went to zero and remained with nobody on the island for about 30 years, they think.
Yeah.
And they can tell this from things like the genetic makeup of the people before 23, sort of 50, in these megalithic tombs or whatever. They have a different gene to the people who came later.
Right,
So the people who came during Zosme's time were probably of sort of Greek and Mediterranean descent.
Yeah.
And then the people who came after that were more sort of like from where Poland is, that direction,
Right, okay.
Ukraine, Poland,
Yeah.
and across Northern Europe that way. So all those things happened, but what I love is the fact that part of the story is sort of more factual than the modern timeline, nearly, So so this axe and the spirit of the baby, sort of the two timelines will eventually come together.
Yeah.
And then also just to say that in the modern timeline, obviously the climate crisis is caused by us.
Yeah.
So there's just that juxtaposition of the two sets of natural forces, the microscopic one of the fertility and the macroscopic one of climate.
Yeah. And have you got a marker there for another read? Or?
That was to tell me to stop reading.
Oh, it's to tell you to stop reading? Okay, that's fine. Well then, I guess we finish off with your dates, your tour dates.
My tour dates?
I've got them written down if you want me to help you.
If I can't remember them. Well, the first one is in Armagh.
10th of April.
The 10th of April. That's the big launch in Armagh, and that's joint with a launch of the exhibition of the work by the cover artist Frances McKenna. Frances McKenna, IrishArtist.com is her website, or just do Frances McKenna art in Google. And if you like looking at beautiful art, you can just scroll through. She has everything up on her website. She's very generous like that. But she's having an exhibition. She has experienced baby loss and miscarriages and child loss. She had a little baby who was born premature, Enya, and baby Enya survived for 11 days.
Right, okay.
And a lot of Frances's artwork reflects her experience of that and her healing of that and her connection she feels still with baby Enya. So that, and it's beautiful. Okay. It really is beautiful. Yeah. So that's the 10th of April. Then the 12th of May.
14th, I've got.
Sorry, 14th of May. I'm glad you're here.
That's okay.
14th of May is the Irish Writers' Centre.
Yeah. Is that in Dublin? Or?
That's in Dublin.
Dublin, yeah.
Purnell Square, around that area. Then the 22nd of May is No Alibis here in Belfast. Still to be decided is the venue is still to be confirmed, but there's a date looming in Derry for the 12th of June. I knew there was a 12 in there somewhere. And then 21st of June is a Saturday morning reading at the Secret Bookshelf in Carrickfergus. Have you been to that?
No.
Oh, you have to go up to it. It's a real treat. And Jo Zebedee she's a writer, but she also owns and runs the bookshop.
Oh, right, okay. I've never been there.
And I'm telling you, that's a great wee spot. And Joe's brilliant. I love Joe.
I'll check that out.
Definitely go check that out.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's pretty much the tour.
I'll tell you what.
For now.
That's brilliant. That's been fantastic, Byddi. Short and sweet, but I hope you don't mind. That's been okay. So
you'll have to leave them wanting more.
All I have to say is thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And that was Byddi Lee, who read from her latest book, Barren. Next week, we'll be back to the music. We have the wonderful John Andrews, who I believe is playing in Carrickfergus this weekend with his band on the Friday. And I quite possibly might be doing an acoustic on the Saturday. I know the Friday's in the Admiral Bar, but I'm not quite sure where the gig is on the Saturday. But if you're free, I suggest you go along, because the man has a bundle of talent. And from me and Darren at Acoustic Haven, I want to say good night, and at least I didn't forget the name of us in the ending. Bye.